It's becoming to be that time of year where not only are teams trying to figure out how good they are to get into the playoffs, but also these players that are going to be unrestricted free agents are trying to figure out where their next contract is going to land and basically audition for where they're going to be next season if they're going to be playing at all. So we'll talk about both sides of that spectrum today on our NFL episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I am your host, Edward Smith. Everybody, this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I'm Edward Smith, and with me today is Thaddeus Floyd.
Hello.
It is, like I said, that time of year where some quarterbacks have really risen and proven themselves to be sought after for that next contract, and some of them not so much. And one that I want to talk about real quick, Thaddeus, is Sam Darnold. He is a quarterback that came into this year just just in a situation that was a holdover waiting for JJ McCarthy, and JJ McCarthy goes down. That means Sam Darnold is the starter the entire year. And here the Vikings are. They have 11 wins already and have taken over second place for the NFC North, the hardest division in the NFL. I mean, what are you seeing out of this guy that's been different?
I've been seeing good amount actually. So now it's what we were talking about when he was drafted with the Jets. There's all this upside. He's got a big arm. He can process things pretty well. And he does have his capability. And when he was with the Jets, we didn't really see that because the Jets are not a great organization, and he played behind a horrible O line. He goes to Carolina, not another great situation either. Didn't play well at all. Then he goes to the 49ers, sits behind Brock Purdy for a year, and we didn't really see much out of him. We saw him against the Rams at the very end of the year when the Niners had already clinched the one seed. Um, so it wasn't too much, but then now you see him with a full arsenal, probably a top three receiving core in the NFL with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and the expert play calling from Kevin O'Connell. And it's just been like a perfect situation for him where he can just use that massive arm of his to just, throw it down the field to these awesome receivers. But also, just throw it really accurately on those intermediate and short stuff as well. And he's just looked a lot sharper than he previously had in his other tenures. So I think it's a little bit of growth, but also a perfect marrying of the scheme and his other players around him.
Yeah, and to highlight that point, one thing that I saw is he is averaging eight 8.3, 8.5 yards a throw, which is massive in today's NFL. When you have so many checkdowns, you have so many now screens, you have so many schemes that are near the line of scrimmage and relying on these top end wide receivers to then break free from that. Well, in this Kevin O'Connell scheme, he is Sam Darnold is thriving, getting the ball down the field, getting those explosive plays. If you were to ask anybody at the beginning of the year who is going to be leading explosive plays this deep into the season, how many players would you have to go through before you got to the name Sam Darnold? I mean, that is just indicative of what we're talking about with this guy. He definitely deserves another year at the helm of this offense, trying to get JJ McCarthy ready to come in. It may be a year later than what JJ wants to come in, but I think as an organization, I think it is the right move to have Sam Darnold stay there and still be that veteran presence for the younger guy. What say you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult situation because like no one, not even in the Vikings organization, did they think it was going to be this good of a season. They're 11-2, right now a game and a half behind the Lions for first place, maybe even the first seed of the NFC. Like you would think like the best expectations for the Vikings coming into this season before McCarthy got injured, or actually after McCarthy got injured, like, oh, Sam can help us win a couple games. We might win at most 7 or 8 games. Well, they've already blown past it. We still got 4 games left in the season, and he's playing at a pretty elite level. He still has a couple, Darnold turnovers every once a game, but he makes up well more up for it with multiple touchdown passes in games. And it's just incredible what's been going on because we've had stories of these kind of caliber quarterbacks. You've seen the resurgence of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield. Well, that this is on the next level from that because while those two are really good and they've helped with their franchises and their win column basically, Darnold's gone even farther above that, putting up these crazy numbers that only top five quarterbacks really put up. Like we've seen Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, being the superheroes of their team, averaging 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. That is Sam Darnold this year as well. And what you were saying about the yards per play, like 9.3, 9.5, I believe that's best in the league. We had this discussion earlier in the year, the too high safety thing. Oh, they're taking away all the explosive plays, right? Well, look at the Vikings. Look at what they're doing. They're exploding off the charts with this. So I don't get that narrative. That was kind of a rant on the side. But the point still stands. Sam Darnold has been doing very well for himself. And if they make a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, we might have to keep McCarthy in the kitchen fridge for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And one player that I think Sam uh, should probably give a big hearty handshake to is Aaron Jones, because Aaron Jones being able to run the ball and not have defensive ends just pin their ears back and chase him down on every play, that is such a value to a quarterback that is really coming into his own versus being in, as you said, two situations that were not advantageous for him growing into this league. Now, he is an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year, currently making 10 million as the guy, which most quarterbacks that I'm seeing that are unrestricted free agents that have that are making a little bit less than that are a lot of backup quarterbacks, journeymen, guys that are just looking to find a job. And there's 8 of the top 12 of those that have started games for teams this year, furthering the point that you need a quality backup. So we're going to play a little game, Thaddeus,
All
and
right.
the game is catch or release. When we're talking about these quarterbacks that are going to be unrestricted free agents, but they have started games for their current team this year. Sam Darnold,
Keep him.
catch him. All right,
Catch
I
him.
say catch him as well. Jacoby Brissett in New England.
He's the perfect backup quarterback, I think. Maybe a little bit under, but it would depend on the starter. But I think I would keep him.
I would catch as well. Like you said, a great backup quarterback with Drake May, just trying to figure things out. Taylor Heineke in Los Angeles for the Chargers.
Yeah, I would keep him. I think he became really close in a playoff game at least. So he's got that all those memes going around with that dog in him. Yeah,
I
so
would
I would keep him.
release. And
Okay.
I would release him. Simply for the fact of there's so many quarterbacks that are coming out that I don't think are top flight starters coming out in the draft that you could develop some guys behind Justin Herbert that can fill that spot for a little less, and that would mean that that front office can go out and get some more weapons on the offensive line, as Jim
Yeah.
Harbaugh likes to say. Uh,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because I mean, if because I mean, you have Herbert and you're taking Heineke. I mean, Heineke's good for a 1 year bridge gap, but if you're gonna go, I think that makes sense. If you're like gonna go for just draft a rookie quarterback, maybe then yeah, maybe.
yeah.
I would personally
Um,
still keep him though. I think
well, I mean,
personally,
there's always Las Vegas. There's
yeah,
they need a
that
quarterback
is true.
somehow, some way, and Taylor Heineke, he could be a starter and play, kind of a Sam Darnold plan for whoever they bring in through the draft, which I think we all think is going to be Shador Sanders, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Unless they draft have the third Oregon quarterback go to the AFC West, then you know
Possibly,
Gabriel
possibly
Herbert
Dylan
and
Gabriel,
yeah
yeah.
and
Drew
Nix.
Lock for the Giants and catch or release.
That's I would release. He had a good. He didn't do very well in the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos were very good during his tenure. And then he did well in Seattle actually. I think for the couple games that he did play,
You know,
but Giants' fault. So I'm would release.
I Drew Lock for that one, I would catch. I think he can be a good, stable entity in that locker room as they just try and figure out who's going to play quarterback for them long term. Uh, that's
Mm,
just my feeling on that, though. Especially with the whole debacle of um, oh Daniel Jones, the whole Daniel Jones debacle. You need somebody that's kind of stable and kind of just keep the train moving. And I
yeah,
think Drew Lock can do that in New York. Andy Dalton in Carolina, catch or release.
I would catch. He's enough a veteran presence enough. I think to being a locker room. He's a locker room kind of guy. And I would definitely keep him for a young, for mentoring a young quarterback for sure. He could start like 1 or 2 games for you, but after that, he would not elevate your team at all. But yeah, I think I would catch on that.
Okay. Uh, I think I would release Andy Dalton. I don't think he's durable enough anymore to be the Red Rocket that he used to be. So I know they want to skew younger and rebuild through the draft and do all these things when they gave away half their draft picks for stuff that didn't work out. Um, but they need to try and build younger, and I don't think Andy Dalton fits that mold. Here comes an interesting one. Justin
Okay.
Fields. Justin Fields, catch or release.
This I was looking at the list, and this might be the hardest one because he, unlike the most of these quarterbacks on this list, like he actually has like a crazy upside, like a really high ceiling, but that floor is lower than the others on the list as well. So if I were the Steelers, I would keep him at least another year. I would catch him for another year just in case Russell Wilson gets hurt, because he won 4 out of 6 games his first couple starts. It was mostly due to the defense, but he won the games nonetheless. So if it was any other team, I unless he was like a pure backup role, I wouldn't have him. But if it was the Steelers, I would catch him. So
I would say catch just because I think Justin Fields needs to be that gadget guy until he is ready to be the starting quarterback, whether
Yeah.
that's with Pittsburgh or someplace else. He can be a guy that can add value by creating a select package for him to be running the offense versus Russell Wilson. I think back to the days of the Steelers being the original team that has the gadget guy and Cordell Stewart, aka Slash, and that's from well before you were born, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Uh, so
That's
I,
true.
I think Justin Fields is a catch for at least 2 years just to see
Mhm.
how that works out. And if he does well enough, somebody's going to go get him. It's going to be
Yeah.
another trade situation, uh, kind of like uh, there. We were talking about Stephon Diggs a few weeks ago, who has been traded all around the league, and or was no, it was Amari Cooper. It was Amari Cooper.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We were talking about being traded all around the league and had all these contract extensions, but he's never touched free agency. So I think Justin Fields could fit that mold.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe one day we can get like remember when the Madden 25 trailer came out and they had Justin Fields as a kickoff returner. Maybe we'll get that one day. Be
maybe
that real gadget guy.
for sure, for sure. Joe Flacco. I'm going to say Joe Flacco needs to be released. He needs to be put down to pasture. He's yes, he still has an arm, and yes, he is old enough to have seen everything and maybe be able to impart some knowledge to a young guy like Anthony Richardson. But gosh, I I just don't think that the offense that they're trying to run in Indianapolis is going to be something that can work for Joe Flacco long term. This was about him just not giving up the ghost. He has been in the league long enough. I think it's time for him to just let him go fishing somewhere.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. He's just what is he like? I think he's. Oh yeah, I know Aaron Rodgers is the oldest, but I think he's like the second oldest quarterback right now, and he's. I mean, it worked for the second half of the season with Cleveland, but it hasn't really. It didn't really work out with the Colts. I mean, he could still fling it, but he still had those interceptions.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'd put him to pasture as well.
And the last one on our list, I think we're going to be in agreement on this one as well. Jameis Winston. He's got to stay in Cleveland.
He does.
There's no chance that Cleveland is going to let him go, especially at the rate that he's being paid right now, which is just $4 million, compared to so much money that is guaranteed to a terrible quarterback that is on the injured reserve. So,
Yeah.
do you agree on that one?
Yeah, totally. We haven't seen we the two greatest quarterbacks with memes was Jason or Nathan Peter meme and Jameis Winston. Like the greatest quarterbacks you will ever see. Like who is it? Brett Coleman tweeted out, "I've never seen a boring Jameis Winston game." He's literally pure entertainment, and I would take him any day of the week. Because he's going to throw 5 touchdowns. Like the Broncos get 5 touchdowns and 2 pick sixes. Like how else are you going to get a Jameis Winston game? So yes, I would keep him just for pure entertainment value. Because after all, this is the NFL. It's pure entertainment.
There it is. For sure, for sure. All right, so that's our list I on unrestricted free agent quarterbacks going into next season, and that leads us into uh, the games this week. Which the first game we're going to take a look at is Deshaun Watson's previous team, the Houston Texans, playing host to the Miami Dolphins. But before
Well,
we do
before
that, Thaddeus, you want to give us a update on our picks records?
yeah, so Matt, who's not here with us here today, unfortunately, but last week he went 4-1 with his only loss being the Bills, which was a surprise to a lot of people. All three of us picked the Bills on that. I went 3-2, and Ed went 2-3. So that puts the records. Ed is 47-26. I am 40-30, and Matt is 35-32.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Matthew got over that 500 mark, so I'm sure
Yeah,
he's
there you
smiling
go.
somewhere right now. So as we dive into this game, the Dolphins at the Texans, this is going to be a noon kickoff on Sunday. Right now, we are seeing the Texans favored by a field goal with just over a 50% chance of winning by statistic standards. Um, as far as going into this game, I there's some urgency for the Texans, but I feel like there's more urgency for the Dolphins to try and figure out some semblance of the team that went to the playoffs last year that they just have not been able to put together this season. Whether it be Tua's injuries, whether it be some of these other injuries like Raheem Mostert's, Anthony Walker Jr.'s, uh, D. Eskridge, he's out. Uh, Bradley Chubb, he's out. He's on pup. So it's like, where is that team from last year? And I really think the Dolphins are trying to find a way to, get that spark. This is not the team to do it against, though. The Texans, they are a great home team. They love their home cooking down in H Town. And CJ Stroud is, starting to pick up a little bit compared to some of the early season struggles that he had. And here we are. They are in the mix to try and, secure a spot to go later on down the road, which we'll get to in a little bit. So I am going to take the Texans on this, uh, right in the range of 27 to 17. And just for record's sake, Matthew did select the Texans as well.
Okay. Yeah, this is a tough one because the Dolphins need to get this win to stay in the playoff hunt. And they're facing a Texans team who's faced a fair amount of criticism the past couple months. Although, like you said, CJ Stroud's been picking up because he's gotten Nico Collins back. Nico Collins missed a month's worth of games. So this is a really tough one for me. Texans came off a bye. Dolphins won in overtime versus the Jets, who Aaron Rodgers looked a lot better in that game. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go Texans as well. It's just like you said, that injury report didn't look too great for the Dolphins. I think it might be a high scoring game, a high scoring affair, but yeah, the Texans probably have heard the criticism and they probably realize they need to start stepping it up before they head into the playoffs. So yeah, I'll have the Texans. Let's go with a scoregami. Let's go 33-28.
Okay. Okay. So a little closer than what I had. And you know what could also be a lot closer than what the books have, and that is the Packers at the Seahawks. This is the Sunday night game this week, and there's a lot on the line for both of these teams because the Packers being third in the NFC North with the Seahawks with is it a game above with a game lead on the rest of the NFC West. Uh, so they're both fighting to for their playoff lives because Green Bay being the third team in the NFC North to make the playoffs, that does not put them in an advantageous spot. Even though they're at a 9-4 record versus the Seahawks, which are on track to secure this division at 8-5. It's just the way that the NFC West has kind of run this year, kind of a 500 uh, division so far, Thaddeus, what are you
Yeah.
seeing between these two teams, and what kind of urgency can we see out of both of these two playing on Sunday night?
Well, yeah, it's like you said, the Packers third right now, so they would be the sixth seed, I believe, in the playoffs. And then the Seahawks are trying to keep their division lead since they had a massive win against the Cardinals last week, and that puts them on top of the division by at least a game, game and a half. And the NFC West is going a little crazy right now. It's the South. You have a lot of 500 teams. We got the Niners Rams game coming up this Thursday, which loser of that was likely out of the playoffs. Um, but yeah, so the Seahawks need to keep their division lead, and the Packers need to keep pace with the Vikings at least, because I don't think they have a shot at winning the division now since they lost to the Lions twice. So I just think in general though the Packers are a better team overall. The Seahawks, they've won 4 games in a row, but they've just been inconsistent throughout the whole year. And also, I need them to lose. So, I actually do think the Packers are better though than the Seahawks. So I do think the Packers will pull out a win. The Seahawks team though is not a joke. I'm going to say that they are not a joke, but the Packers need this win more than the Seahawks, I believe, to keep pace with the Vikings right now. So I'm going to have the Packers winning this 31-24.
Okay. So you are just on the under 45 and a half, according to ESPN bet on that. So what I'm seeing in this game is Seattle's offensive line has been decimated by injuries. And that is one of the strengths of Green Bay's defense is that defensive line. So I think there's going to be a lot more pressure, a lot more, uh, a lot more collapsing of the pocket around Geno Smith this week. So I am going to take the Packers on this one. I, my Packers, of course. Uh, and I am going to take the over the 45 and a half on this. Uh, I think this is going to be a game in which not only do the Packers show the urgency that they need to keep pace, they've actually been playing fairly well, even despite the loss in Detroit last week. So I think they keep that rolling and uh, have a pretty decent game here uh, in the 33 to uh, 20 realm. So we're going to be over 50 points, in my opinion, overall. So, uh, and for the record, Matthew did select the Packers as well. So that's two games. We're all three picking the same. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I believe so.
All right. Y'all are never going to catch me that way. And the last game that we're going to preview uh, on on our episode today is the Steelers at the Eagles. This is the Fox 325 game, Battle of Pennsylvania, and really one of the more entertaining games that I see on the docket this week because while it's AFC versus NFC, these are two pretty evenly matched teams. And I hate to say it, it's a little early, but could this be the Super Bowl matchup? But the Battle of Pennsylvania going the Super Bowl going through the Battle of Pennsylvania? Could this be?
Yeah, maybe. It's it's going to be tough because you got the Eagles on a big streak right now. They've won like 8 games in a row, right? I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they've been going on a streak. But then you've had this whole weird controversy with Brandon Graham. He's out for the year, but he brings up this weird that AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts hate each other or something. I don't know. But there's we and then we had the whole Nick Sirianni thing at the beginning of the year, and I've doubted him this year. But then in the end, high end talent pulls him out. However, they're going against another team with high end talent and complete BS, and that is the Steelers. They will win in every possible way imaginable. So I think it's like you said, it's going to be probably the most fun game out of the docket, despite it being Steelers football and all. God, I'm going to go with the Eagles here. I think they'll just Saquon will just have a late game run or something, and because both these teams have pulled out crazy wins this year, but I just think the BS magic of the Eagles is better than the BS magic of the Steelers currently. So, um, I'm gonna have to go with the Eagles on this one. Uh, let's say let's say 21-17.
Well, Matthew agrees with you by selecting the Eagles. And the NFC leader in rushing right now is Saquon Barkley. So this is an offense that runs through the running game, uh, game in, game out. And it's hard to think that Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown hate each other if Jalen Hurts is throwing more to AJ Brown than anybody else, and AJ Brown leads the team in receiving yards at over 830 yards. So how does that work? I don't quite
I
get that. But on the flip side, Russell Wilson has had quite the renaissance this year in Arthur Smith's offense, which it's drop back, it is play action, it's down the field. These are very similar concepts to what I'm used to seeing Russell Wilson do in Seattle. So to have him do that in Pittsburgh with a team that is built on its defense, Russell Wilson doesn't have to play hero ball, which remember, when Russell Wilson didn't have to play hero ball to keep his team engaged uh, game in, game out, they won the Super Bowl. That was his rookie season. That was his first couple of years in the league. So here we are. It's a very similar structure in Pittsburgh than what those couple of years were, but that's an overarching uh, idea about this particular Pittsburgh team that I see. In this game, I'm taking Philadelphia. It's going to be at Lincoln, and I just think Saquon and Jalen Hurts are going to be able to get those necessary 1 to 2 yards that they need to keep bleeding the clock once they get ahead and just run it down. It is going to be a lower scoring game, in my opinion. The over under right now is at 42 and a half, with Philly favored by 5. I think this is going to be in that 19 to 17 range. This is going to be a just a mess of a game down in the trenches.
Yeah.
Now, the other possible Super Bowl matchup that we could be seeing this weekend is the Buffalo Bills and Detroit Lions. Matthew has the Bills with this game, uh, them being on the road going into Detroit. I gotta ride the hot hand myself with the Lions. What say you, Thaddeus?
This is such a fantastic matchup. I remember I was going earlier in the year and I was like, yeah, I'm circling this matchup. I'm watching this one, and this was going to be fun. But I'm gonna ride with the revenge of the loss, and I'm gonna go with the Bills on this one. It's a tough choice because both these teams are excellent offensively, but both defenses are currently suffering right now. The Lions due to injuries, and then the Bills. got absolutely stomped by Matthew Stafford and that receiving core. So I just think Josh Allen's going to be able to make plays that Jared Goff just can't, and they're going to pull out the win. It honestly might be, I don't know, it might be a medium scoring game. I was going to say high scoring, but I think the Sean McDermott always reigns in that defense once it gives up a lot of points. So I'm going to say Bills 35-28.
Okay. As far as my score prediction on that, I'm going to say Lions go with your score earlier, 33-28. It'll be it'll be interesting. It'll be a fun game to watch, and the fact that it's being played at the same time as this Pennsylvania matchup is just unfair. It really is.
People who don't have red zone are going to miss out.
Oh, you think? And the last game that we're going to talk about, I also kicks off at 3:25. Go figure. It's the Buccaneers and Chargers. Thaddeus, who do you got in this?
Oh gosh, it's they're killing me with these good games, man. I can't make a decision. We got the Bucks who are currently on a winning streak ever since Mike Evans got back, basically, and then you have the Chargers the Chargers this year. Just like to describe them, they're really good. Like they can beat and pummel the bad teams, and they'll barely lose against the really really good teams, like the elite teams. So they're just like the perfect good team. And the Buccaneers, are an average team, is like record wise, and some of the roster a little bit. It's all very average, but they have the potential to beat the big guys. Like they beat the Eagles, they beat the Lions this year. So it's really a toss up for me. I'm I'm gonna go with the Bucks on this one. I'm gonna trust my boy Baker Mayfield on this one. He's just got guts. He's just got those guts spewing all over the field, and I feel like he's gonna go on a game-winning drive at some toward the end of the game. So I'm it's tough, but I'm gonna take the Bucks on this one. Let's say 24-20.
I gonna take my boy from Texas, Dicker the kicker. He is gonna have a game-winning field goal as time expires, and I'm gonna call this one at 17-16. It's gonna be just on uh, the game-winning field goal at the end. So, and Matthew is with me on that Chargers. So uh, we look forward to seeing how it all shakes out. And
Yeah.
considering with the way that things shake out, we are going to see some playoff clinching scenarios possibly take shape this week. Uh, in the NFC, we already have two teams that have clinched a playoff berth, but not the division yet, and that's Detroit and Philly. Detroit being the best team in the league according to NFL rankings, they still have not clinched that division because they've got the Vikings hot on their heels, and the Packers are within earshot. But those two losses that the Packers had against them, it'll be a tough sledding to get there. So with that game that we talked about before, Green Bay and Seattle, Green Bay can clinch their spot in the playoffs with a win and an Atlanta loss or tie, or a San Francisco and Los Angeles Rams tie. Thaddeus, do you think this is a scenario that is really on the table?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely just the top three of the NFC North was just insane this year. Like nobody saw this coming. Like listen, I didn't have and I came close. I At the beginning of the season I said the Packers and the Lions were both going to go 14-3. Lions, that might happen. We'll see. But this NFC North is just crazy. And two of those teams are definitely getting wild card spots. So there's only one going to be one wild card spot left, and I think the Packers can easily are easily going to get that fifth or sixth seed. They've already locked up the sixth seed, so it's just fifth or seventh. Yeah, I just think, especially the Vikings, it's going to be interesting with their last matchup against the Lions coming up soon. That might determine the division winner and who gets the fifth seed, because that's going to
That's
be that's going to be crazy.
that's true. I mean, there's a huge difference between being the fifth seed and being on the road versus having the first round bye. So
Yeah, the
that's
only team to get a first round bye.
exactly. Now the we had mentioned the other team in the NFC North. They have a clinching scenario for the playoffs this weekend as well. If they win, uh, and then have a Los Angeles Rams loss and a Seattle loss, so they actually have to root for the Packers while winning this week, and also root for your 49ers. I I think that this is a good scenario uh, that should happen this week. I don't think that they're going to prolong this out any further because I think these are all results that are clearly on the table to happen this week.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
with
it's
the Eagles,
likely.
they we mentioned that they are in the playoffs, but they can clinch the NFC East division title with a win and a Washington loss, or tie and a Washington loss. They're that much ahead to where even a tie can help them in. So, Thaddeus, is it is this just inevitable when it comes to Philadelphia? Can we just go ahead and call them the NFC East champs and move about our day?
We could, but the big but is the Commanders, who've been who started off the season so good. Like they had a perfect season to begin, and then the second half Cliff Kingsbury offense started to show up, and they haven't been as good. However, they did dominate the Titans their last game, which was good, and they're playing the Saints this week. So their hopes are still alive for this, but they would need some things to go their way, because I think the Eagles should have like a 90% chance to lock up this division. So you could say that, but there's still a chance, you know. There's
All
still
right,
a
Lloyd.
tiny window. Huh?
All right, Lloyd Christmas. So you're saying there's a chance?
They're saying there's a chance.
In the first game that we had talked about, the Houston Texans, they could clinch the South Division with a win against the Dolphins and the Indianapolis loss. This it'll be tight, like we talked about. That game is going to be somewhat competitive, but that seems to be something that we kind of expect to happen this weekend. And the last one that we have here, the Eagles Steelers game, it whoever wins, they they have playoff implications. So not only could this be the most entertaining game of the weekend, but there are some playoff implications for whoever wins this game. Uh, What else is supposed to happen, Thaddeus? If Pittsburgh wins for them to get into the playoffs?
Well, they need to win, or at least tie with the Eagles. And then they need to Miami or the Dolphins to lose. Or sorry, Miami. They need Miami or the Colts to lose. And it actually ties into what you previously said, because it's going to be interesting. Because right now, the Texans have the hold on that AFC South division, and everyone thought they were going to win the division. However, there still is the possibility of a collapse, and the Colts are playing the super important matchup against the Broncos. Let's not forget, because the Broncos currently hold one of those wild card spots. And here's the thing: if the Broncos win, these other teams, the Texans and the Steelers, get playoff spots. If the Colts win, they'll be closer to the Texans for winning that division, and then other teams, and the Colts could actually very big implications on what's happening. So this is if we're getting closer to the end of the year, and this is probably the week where those playoff atmospheres are coming out. We're gonna it's getting tighter and tighter for teams to try and make this playoff, and we might see some crazy things happen down here on the stretch.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I know I'm going to have my popcorn ready watching these games. Thaddeus, I'm fairly sure that you're going to have some snackaroos, if you
Yeah,
will, uh, sitting down watching these games. But
box of donuts.
and you know what? We're all going to be watching these games just as much as you guys watching this are going to be watching those games. So let's get started. And that's about all we have time for it as we start to prepare for this weekend watching these games. So from all of us, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.